Welcome, everyone, to another deep dive with us.
Always a pleasure.
And today we're going underwater.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, we are diving into the world of Jules Verne and specifically his 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Classic.
It is a classic.
Real classic.
And not just the book itself, but we're going to look at two of the movie adaptations.
Okay.
So we've got the 1916 silent film, and then we've got the Disney classic from 1954.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting pairing because you've got such a difference in filmmaking, obviously, but also like cultural context between those two.
Yeah, it's almost 40 years apart, so it's a huge gap.
Huge, yeah.
So what's interesting to me is how those interpretations of, Captain Nemo and his world, how they reflect the filmmaking trends, and maybe even like the social context of the times.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the most obvious places to see that is in the character of Captain Nemo himself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you look at the 1916 film, they really go off the rails with the character.
In what way?
Well, they make him into this kind of vengeful figure. He's haunted by a ghost. He's out to avenge his lost daughter.
Oh, wow.
It's a whole...
That's a pretty big departure from the book.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild interpretation.
And one of the sources we looked at movies silently, they were pretty critical of that take.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they called it melodramatic. And even went so far as to say the actor's performance was on par with his notoriously bad directing in other films.
Ouch.
Yeah, that's a harsh critique.
It is, but it's kind of understandable because melodrama was very common in silent films.
Right.
They had to rely on exaggerated emotions and gestures to get the story across without dialogue.
Right, so maybe that's why they went in that direction.
Yeah, maybe it was their way of adapting the character for the silent format.
Because then you jump ahead to the 1954 film, and you've got James Mason playing Nemo.
Right.
And it's a much closer adaptation to the kind of Byronic hero that you see in the book.
Definitely that brooding, rebellious figure with a touch of nobility. But the Disney version, it adds another layer too.
What's that?
They emphasize Nemo's utopian ideals and his internal struggle about humanity.
It's almost like they're reflecting the post-World War II sentiment.
How so?
Well, the world had just gone through this devastating conflict, and there was this desire for peace, new world order.
Right.
Could Nemo's yearning for a better world, even if it's in isolation, could that have resonated with audiences on a deeper level because of what they just experienced?
That's a really interesting point. It's like these adaptations aren't just retelling the story, they're reinterpreting it through a contemporary lens.
Yeah. And speaking of reinterpretations, we can't forget about Ned Land, the harpooner.
Oh, yes, Ned Land.
The 1916 film basically reduces him to a bit player.
Almost an afterthought.
Yeah, like he's barely there.
And Movies Silently actually points out how insignificant he becomes in that version.
And then the Disney film flips the script entirely. Well, now Ned Land, played by Kirk Douglas, is this, boisterous, comedic, action-oriented character.
It's a complete transformation.
Yeah, it's like they injected him with Hollywood charisma.
Well, and there's actually a mention in the Great Disney Movie Ride blog that Kirk Douglas himself pushed for a more action hero persona for the character.
Really?
Yeah, classic Hollywood move, right? Take a supporting character, give them more swagger, and they're a fan favorite.
And it worked.
It definitely worked.
It really speaks to how that film embraced entertainment and spectacle.
Yeah, that was becoming Disney's signature style, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which is really apparent when you look at the visual landscape of these two films.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just imagine trying to film underwater in 1916.
Yeah.
The technology was so limited.
I was reading some IMDb trivia that said they used a system developed by the Williamson brothers, and it was basically a giant underwater periscope.
Wow. Talk about ingenuity.
It's crazy.
But even with that, they were still at the mercy of things like water clarity and sunlight.
Right, they couldn't control those elements.
No, they couldn't. And you can see those limitations in the final product.
Oh, absolutely. It's a world of difference compared to the 1954 film.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's the film that gave us the iconic imagery that we associate with the story. The Nautilus glozing through coral reefs, the giant squid attacks.
The sheer vastness of it all.
Exactly.
Yeah, they really set a new standard for underwater filmmaking.
They did.
I was reading the Great Disney Movie Ride blog, and they even suggested that it influenced the look of steampunk.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with that blend of futuristic technology and kind of Victorian-era design.
I can totally see that.
Yeah, and it's not just the grand scale either.
Right.
There's a blog post by Christina Weiner where she raves about the intricate details. The opulent design of the Nautilus, the sets, the costumes.
Yeah, she said everything is so visually rich.
It's that attention to detail that really elevates the 1954 film.
It does.
I mean, the Nautilus isn't just a vessel.
Yeah.
It's almost like a character in itself.
Yeah, a reflection of Nemo's, genius in isolation.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about storytelling through editing.
Okay.
I mean, it's fascinating how these films use different techniques to shape the narrative.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, one IMDb review praises the 1916 film for its complex editing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they compare it to what they call the Griffithian style.
So for those who don't know, D.W. Griffith pioneered this style of using fast cuts, parallel action, and close-ups, all to heighten the emotion and create suspense.
Right, so even in the silent era, filmmakers were experimenting with visual storytelling.
Absolutely.
But then the 1954 film takes a different approach.
In what way?
Well, the great Disney Movie Ride blog talks about how it leans more towards visual spectacle and action sequences.
Yeah.
Like there's that scene where divers burst out of the water to capture Aronnax and his companions.
It's pure Hollywood action.
It is.
And it reflects how audience tastes were changing.
Yeah, they wanted that more dynamic, visually driven style.
Exactly.
And speaking of changes, both films took some creative liberties with the source material.
Oh, of course they did.
The 1916 film adds a whole romantic subplot.
Really?
Yeah, and it involves Aronnax's daughter, who doesn't even exist in the novel,
Uh-huh.
and Ned Land.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it goes nowhere.
Well, movies silently joke that they wouldn't want their daughter dating a harpooner either.
Yeah, I get that.
But it makes you wonder, why add that element at all?
Right, like what were they trying to achieve?
Maybe broaden the appeal with a little romance and family drama?
Yeah, those were pretty common tropes in those days.
That's true.
And if that wasn't enough of a departure from the book, they also borrowed elements from another Jules Verne novel, Mysterious Island.
Oh, wow. It's like an early attempt at a cinematic universe.
Right.
Makes you wonder if they were trying to capitalize on the popularity of Verne's other works.
Yeah, or maybe just create a more intricate narrative.
Possibly a bit of both.
Yeah.
But the most puzzling addition in the 1916 film has to be this wild girl character who lives on a mysterious island.
On the blog post, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, 1916, and you call yourself a scientist, really points this out.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, they question her purpose in the film.
Yeah, it's one of those head-scratching moments where you just can't figure out the filmmaker's intent.
Exactly.
Was it an attempt to add exoticism or a nod to the fascination with the wild unknown that was popular back then?
It's a good question.
It really is. It's a reminder that even in adaptations, some creative choices can be a bit baffling.
Or even comical, looking back.
Yeah, for sure. But that's part of the fun of exploring these adaptations, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Trying to decipher those choices and how they reflect the filmmaking trends and the cultural sensibilities of their time.
Yeah, it adds another layer of depth to the whole experience.
It's like we're not just analyzing films,
Yep.
we're peeking into a window of film history.
We are.
And it's fascinating to see how filmmakers grappled with the challenges of adapting a story like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and how their solutions reflect the evolution of cinema itself.
It really makes you appreciate how far filmmaking has come since those early days.
It does.
But even with all the technological advancements we have today, the core challenges of adaptation remain the same.
What do you mean?
Well, how do you stay true to the spirit of the source material
Right.
while also making it your own?
Exactly. And as we've seen with these two films, there's no one right way to do it.
Yep.
Each adaptation brings its own unique perspective and vision.
And ultimately, that enriches our understanding of the original work.
I think so too.
That's what I love about adaptations.
What's that?
They're like a conversation across time,
Uh-huh.
Each filmmaker adding their own voice to the ongoing dialogue about the story and its themes.
And speaking of themes,
Right.
let's dive into one that's particularly relevant to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Okay.
The political undertones.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Jules Verne's Captain Nemo, he's a complex character.
He is.
Driven by a deep resentment of colonialism and imperialism.
So how do the films handle those themes?
Well, the novel's pretty explicit about Nemo's motivations.
Right, like we learn he sought refuge in the ocean depths after suffering a profound loss.
Because of a colonizing force.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the 1916 film seems to sidestep those political complexities entirely.
They transform him into a more traditional villain.
Yeah.
Driven by personal vengeance.
Instead of exploring those broader political themes.
Yeah, it's a significant departure from the novel.
So I wonder if that was a deliberate choice to avoid controversial topics.
Possibly. The film was released during World War I,
Right.
So maybe addressing colonialism directly would have been too sensitive.
Yeah, audiences might have been looking for escapism rather than confronting complex political realities.
That's true.
It makes you think how more politically charged adaptation might have been received back then.
It does. It really does. Now the 1954 Disney film takes a slightly different approach. They don't explicitly state Nemo's backstory, but they hint at his disillusionment with humanity.
Right, and his desire for separation from the world above the surface.
Exactly. There's that scene where he laments the destructive nature of humanity, especially their pursuit of warfare.
Yeah, it echoes the novel's anti-imperialist and pacifist themes.
But in a more subtle way.
Right, almost allegorical.
Exactly. And it's a testament to the filmmaker's skill
Yeah.
that they managed to touch on those complex themes without being too preachy.
Yeah, they found a way to make Nemo sympathetic
Even tragic.
while still acknowledging the darker aspects of his character.
Precisely.
Okay, so speaking of complexity, let's not forget about the Nautilus itself.
Oh, yes, the Nautilus.
I mean, Verne's novel goes into great detail about its technology.
the luxurious interiors.
The vast library.
Yeah. So how did the films bring this technological marvel to life?
Well, as you can imagine, the 1916 film faced some serious limitations.
Of course, visual effects were still in their infancy back then.
Right, so they had to rely on practical effects and set design.
Yeah, it must have been a challenge to create that sense of wonder and scale
It must have been.
with the limited tools they had.
And then you have the 1954 Disney film,
Yeah,
which went all out
they did.
in its depiction of the Nautilus.
Oh, absolutely. The Disney Nautilus is iconic.
It is.
It's this stunning blend of futuristic technology and Victorian elegance.
Yes.
With its grand salon, the well-stocked library, and even that magnificent organ.
Yeah, for Nemo's musical enjoyment.
Exactly. It's a visual feast. You can practically feel the plush velvet and smell the old books.
You really can.
They captured the essence of Verne's description, that sense of the Nautilus being a self-contained world.
Yes.
It's that attention to detail that makes the Disney adaptation so immersive.
It does.
You feel like you could step right onto the Nautilus.
And embark on an underwater adventure.
Exactly.
And beyond the visuals, both films had to make choices about what parts of the novel's plot to emphasize.
It's always a challenge adapting a complex story for the screen.
It is. You have to find a balance between staying true to the source material and creating a narrative that works within the time constraints of a film.
Right.
So as we've seen, both films made some interesting choices in that regard.
Yeah, like what?
Well, the 1916 film, with its inclusion of elements from Mysterious Island, creates a more multi-layered plot that really deviates from the novel's structure.
It's almost like they were trying to create their own Jules Verne cinematic universe.
Right, blending characters and storylines from different books.
Exactly. It's a bold approach.
It is.
But it does make the film feel a bit disjointed at times.
Okay, in contrast, the 1954 Disney film streamlines the story,
Oh, yeah.
focusing on key episodes like the giant squid, attack the underwater exploration of Atlantis, and Nemo's final confrontation with a warship.
Right. They selected scenes that would translate well visually.
And provide plenty of action and excitement for the audience.
It's a more straightforward adaptation.
It is, but still effective in conveying the essence of Verne's adventure.
It's a classic case of show, don't tell.
Right.
Let the visuals and action do the heavy lifting in terms of storytelling.
Yeah, which was a smart choice for a film aimed at a broad audience.
And it worked.
It did.
The film became a cultural phenomenon,
It did.
cementing its place in cinematic history.
So what does it all mean?
Well, I think it speaks to the enduring power of Jules Verne's storytelling.
Yeah.
His novels, especially 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, continue to spark the imagination.
They do.
They offer filmmakers this rich canvas to explore their own creative visions.
And reflect the cultural and technological trends of their times.
Exactly. It's like each adaptation is a conversation with the original novel,
Right.
adding new layers of meaning and interpretation.
Which ultimately enriches our understanding of the story and its themes.
And as we've seen, those conversations can be vastly different.
Oh, big on
Can
that.
seem contradictory,
Right.
but that's what makes them so fascinating. It reminds us that art is never static.
Right.
It's always evolving, always inviting us to engage with it in new and unexpected ways.
Well said. It's like we've taken a journey through the history of filmmaking itself.
Yeah. We've seen how technology, cultural perspectives, and storytelling techniques have shaped the way we experience this classic tale. And what's truly remarkable is that both films, despite their flaws and creative liberties,
Right.
still capture something essential about the spirit of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea,
They do.
they convey that sense of wonder, adventure, and the boundless possibilities of human ingenuity.
And that's what makes a classic story truly timeless.
It
Its
is.
ability to transcend generations
And speak to us on different levels.
and to inspire new interpretations that continue to resonate with audiences.
Absolutely. It's a testament to Verne's visionary genius
Yeah.
that his stories still resonate with us.
Even in our technologically advanced world.
Exactly. He tapped into something universal.
Like,
A fascination with exploration, with pushing the boundaries of what's possible, and that complex relationship between humanity and the natural world.
and that's a theme that's particularly relevant today.
How so?
As we grapple with climate change, environmental degradation, and the impact of human actions on our planet.
You know, it makes you wonder what Jules Verne would think of our world today.
It does imagine showing him our modern submarines, our underwater exploration technologies.
What about our attempts to harness the ocean's power for renewable energy?
Right. Would he be amazed by our progress?
Or horrified by the ways we've exploited the ocean's resources?
I mean, knowing Captain Nemo,
Yeah.
I'm guessing he'd have some strong opinions about our environmental practices.
Oh, I bet he would.
But it's a reminder that 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea isn't just a thrilling adventure story. It's also a cautionary tale.
About the consequences of human actions.
Exactly.
Yeah, it really drives home the point that adapting a classic like this isn't just about, recreating it on screen. It's about finding those connections to the present.
Right. Those themes that still resonate with us today.
Exactly. And one of the things that really struck me about 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, both the novel and the films,
Okay.
is how they depict the Nautilus.
Yes.
I mean, it's not just a submarine, right?
Right.
It's the symbol of human ingenuity, the self-contained world where technology and art coexist.
Yeah, it's like a microcosm of civilization itself.
Exactly.
You know, you've got the library, the art collection, the scientific laboratories.
Even that grand salon for musical performances.
Right. Verne really went all out in creating this incredible vessel.
He did, and the films had to figure out how to bring that vision to life.
Right. And as we talked about, the 1916 film had its limitations.
They did.
So they had to rely on more practical effects and stagecraft.
Right. Which must have been a huge challenge to
Right.
create that sense of scale and wonder.
Especially with the technology of that era.
Exactly. It's a testament to their creativity that they managed to convey any sense of the Nautilus's grandeur at all.
Right.
And then you have the 1954 Disney film,
Yeah.
which really embraced the spectacle.
Oh, they did.
I mean, their Nautilus is iconic.
Absolutely.
It's this visual feast that captures both the technological marvels and the artistic flourishes that Verne described.
Yeah, the way they design the sets, the costumes, the lighting.
Everything.
It all comes together to create this really immersive experience.
You really feel like you're transported into that underwater world.
You do.
And that's one of the things that makes the Disney adaptations so enduring, I think.
Yeah.
It captures that sense of wonder and adventure that's at the heart of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Right. It makes you want to dive right in and explore alongside Captain Nemo.
Exactly.
Okay, well, speaking of exploring,
Yes.
both films had to navigate the challenge of selecting which parts of the novel's plot to highlight.
Oh, that's always tricky when you're adapting a complex story for the screen.
You have to make choices about what to include, what to condense, and what to leave out entirely.
And those choices can have a big impact on how the story is perceived by the audience.
For example, the 1916 film takes a more meandering approach.
How so?
Well, they incorporate elements from Mysterious Island, and they add a romantic subplot that's not in the novel at all.
It's almost like they were creating this sprawling adventure epic,
Right.
drawing inspiration from multiple sources.
Yeah, rather than a strict adaptation of just 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
It's an interesting approach,
It is.
but it does make the film feel a bit disjointed at times.
Yeah, I can see that.
In contrast, the 1954 Disney film streamlines the narrative.
Okay.
They focus on those key episodes that translate well visually and provide lots of action and excitement.
Right, like the giant squid attack the exploration of Atlantis Nemo's final confrontation with the warship.
Exactly. Those are the scenes that stick with you.
They are.
They're cinematic moments that have become so ingrained in popular culture.
And it's a testament to the Disney filmmaker's skill that they were able to capture the essence of Verne's adventure while also creating something uniquely cinematic.
I agree.
Well, we've surfaced from our deep dive into 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and its fascinating film adaptations.
It's been quite a journey.
It has exploring how these films brought Verne's vision to life.
Each in its own way.
And I think the biggest takeaway for me is that 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is more than just a classic adventure story.
What do you mean?
Well, it's a story that continues to speak to us across generations.
Uh,
It prompts us to think about our relationship with technology, with a natural world, and with the power of human imagination.
Beautifully said. It's been a pleasure joining you on this exploration.
It has been fun.
And until next time, I encourage all our listeners to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving into those stories that spark our curiosity.
That's great advice. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Deep Dive.
Of course.
Until next time, happy reading, happy watching, and happy exploring, everyone.